to the Night Vision Experience
with hosts CK and Pandorica.
Two paranormal investigators explore the supernatural realm in search of answers and explanations of things that go bump in the night. Hello, welcome to the premiere episode of Night Vision Experience. We're your hosts, the Crypt Keeper
and Pandorica.
And we are two paranormal investigators with Second Light Paranormal, located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Tonight's show is called Hello from the Other Side, and we will discuss how we, as investigators, communicate with spirits from beyond the grave. And present some of our evidence that we've captured during investigations. But first, we'd like to introduce ourselves.
Hi there, I'm Pandorica. I have been investigating with Second Light Paranormal for about 11 years now. I joined because one of my friend's neighbors founded the team, and she had gone on investigations with them. Since then, our team founder and I have become very close friends. My favorite thing about being an investigator is the unexpected. You literally never know what you're going to encounter and what you're up against. Sometimes when you feel the most relaxed and like nothing is happening is when you have the most amazing experiences. Hey, Crypt Keeper, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you joined the team, and what's your favorite thing about investigating?
Thanks, Pandorica. I've been with SLP now for a few years, and I joined when one of my coworkers claimed to have a haunted house. He was bringing in a psychic and a local paranormal group, and he knew that I was interested in that kind of thing. The local group ended up being Second Light Paranormal. And some of the things that came out that day were just phenomenal.
We did have a lot of really good evidence from that first investigation at that particular residence. That particular residence, we went back to investigate, I think, twice.
Yeah, we've been back a couple times now.
I don't think 3 times, but we've been back twice, and we've had good evidence both times we've been there.
I think one of the favorite things about investigating is evidence review. I absolutely love getting back and going through, listening to my audio evidence, looking at the video evidence, which I think we'll talk about at a later date, and just not knowing what you're going to hear. You can have a great experience while you're there doing the investigation, which there's nothing that can beat that.
It's super exciting, yeah.
But sitting there and listening to hours and hours of audio evidence, to some people that may sound pretty boring, but it's when you catch that whisper or you catch that scream or you capture that one voice, that one sound that wasn't there, there's nothing that can beat that.
It's kind of mind-blowing, and I personally think that the audio review is not the most exciting part of investigating, but when you do find stuff on the audio recorders, it is awesome. Yeah.
Funny that you mentioned that, because one of my most favorite experiences, it wasn't captured on audio at all. It was a personal experience, and it was on one of my first investigations with the team. We were at one of the more well-known haunted locations in America, and we were setting up equipment. I believe I was setting up one of the digital cameras, and walked down the hallway of this place, and I was in a room by myself. I expected, things to happen, because that's what we were there for. We were there to capture evidence and have the hell scared out of us, which
happened.
Which happened.
Yes.
And while I was waiting on a response back from command, whether I had the camera set up right, I heard in my ear, I just heard a, "Hey, a whisper of hey. And I was the only one in this room. The only light I had was the flashlight in my hand. And it scared the hell out of me.
And this location is very big and extremely dark when you're by yourself. And that flashlight doesn't do jack shit, really.
No, it didn't. I had several doorways between me and the rest of the group. And I was on a dead run to get back.
Yeah.
And you guys even knew that something had happened.
Right.
Just by the expression on my face.
And we knew we were in for a good night that night because it started off with you already had a really good personal experience.
Right. We're in the building for 15 minutes and things were already starting to happen.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if this is how it's going to be, this is going to be a good time. I'm going to really enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
And I have ever since.
Actually, one of my favorite experiences with the team happened at that same investigation, actually, the same night, at the same location. Our team has investigated this location many times. It's almost like a yearly pilgrimage for our group, and it's a great way to test out all of our new equipment that we get every year.
And our new personnel.
Yes. We always send the newbies on the challenge that they have. So I was on one of the floors that everybody believes has a lot of negative, bad energy, and something that the owners and the visitors call Big Black, resides in this particular, on this particular floor and the end of the hallway. So our team was walking down to the end of this hallway where it was super dark. And this was like at the beginning of our investigation before we got everything set up. And they always take you around to just kind of acclimate everybody to where things are, even if you've been there many times, for the new people in the group with us, so they can find their way out if they get scared in the dark, basically. So anyway, this staff member took us down to the end of the hall. And he told us about this experiment that he wanted to conduct using our team members. So he wanted everyone to turn off their flashlights and let your eyes kind of adjust to the dark. And then he said he needed a volunteer. So, of course, I volunteered because I'm an idiot.
That was not going to be me.
I was feeling ultra brave that night, and I thought this was a great idea. So
I had already had my experience for the night. So.
I hadn't. So I was like, all right, I'm game to do this. And what he had me do was walk down to the end of the hallway and kind of like put my arms out straight and just walk down the hallway slowly and let like the team kind of let their eyes adjust to the darkness. And when that happened, I felt this like extreme heaviness all the way around me, surrounding me, and I kind of felt like I was trying to trudge through quicksand or something. And according to my team, and you were there that night, what did you see? Because I know what I felt, but I heard from all of you guys that you saw some weird ass
It looked
stuff.
as though you were just starting to be enveloped or encased in darkness.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds odd, but considering you were in a dark hallway in a dark part of the building with no light, but your eyes can adjust to it, and there's enough ambient light coming in through the windows from the lights from the city below or outside source, and you could see your form. You know, you were still close enough that we could see your form, and you started to darken down, but around that you could see light beyond you. You could see that ambient light. So it was like you were just encased in this dark shadow or this dark mass. Yeah. And that's
and it was super creepy because I could feel that the energy was very negative and super heavy, and it wouldn't let up. And I don't know if you noticed this, but one of our team members saw that it like completely blacked me out at one point, and you couldn't see me anymore. And when she had mentioned seeing that, then I just felt completely like overwhelmed by this heavy, horrible feeling. And I told whatever it was to get the hell off of me and leave me alone, because it was just too much. And I had to tell it to go several times. And when it kind of finally let up off of me, then I felt sort of out of it. Like I was on a tranquilizer or something, and I was completely drained of any energy that I had.
Exactly. You seemed like you were drained of your energy, or like you were exhausted.
Like I felt like it just like sucked the life out of me, whatever the hell that was. It was not a pleasant experience at all. But it's definitely like one of the stranger things that I've encountered with our group.
It was a very strange experience to actually witness it happen.
Yeah. And we've since tried that experiment with other members of our team, because I don't like to do it anymore because I've already done it once. But that night at this location, we had a lot of good personal experiences as well as a lot of audio evidence that we're going to share with you today.
So today our focus is going to be on audio evidence and the collection of audio evidence, the equipment that we use. The types of audio evidence that there are electronic voice phenomena, or commonly known as EVP, and audible voice phenomena, which is AVP. We will also talk about the characteristics of EVPs and how they're classified. There are several different theories on classifications, but we'll go over the more common ones and the ones that we're familiar with. We will talk about tools that we use to capture the EVPs, again, the type of equipment, and then we will discuss 4 pieces of evidence that we have captured, and the pieces that we're going to present today are going to be from the places that we've previously talked about already. So the types of audio evidence that we're going to talk about today is AVP, which is audible voice phenomena, electronic voice phenomena, the EVP. We'll discuss the AVP first, which is sometimes called ghost voices. These are actually detected in the environment by one's own ears, kind of like my personal experience, although it wasn't captured digitally or so. But it's that kind of thing. It's something that you actually hear with your ears, just you or whoever's in the room with you. These can be from the classic ghostly moan to knocking sounds to banging, even music. Mm-hmm. The most distinguishing feature, though, is that they are heard in real time and later corroborated by recorded evidence on several different recorders. Their authenticity needs to be determined by the testimony of those who hear them, which is, more of a personal experience, and honest attempts to try to reproduce them to debunk them, or debunk the sound.
And that's pretty much what our whole team, anytime there's any sound evidence on the recorder that, one person picks up that we all don't have on our recorders, if we're all there, we will try every possible way to debunk it before we consider it to be a piece of evidence.
Right. Because you can capture a knock, or you think maybe you hear a shuffle or a sigh, and nobody else captured that.
Yeah.
And it's probably that person, whoever was collecting the evidence.
And sometimes, like, if you move your recorder into your pocket or something, or if you change
brush your finger across.
Right, if you change the position of how you're holding it, it will make a sound. Or some of our team members have loud gastrointestinal issues.
Yes.
And those will make an appearance on the recording as well.
You definitely want to mark those.
Right.
Those are the kind of things that you want to say, that was me, or that was...
Or I just put my recorder into my jacket pocket or something like that, right, so that we know when we're going back and reviewing that it wasn't, a team member's stomach,
Right.
crying out from the night.
um, one of the other devices that we use to help capture the AVPs are like amplifying devices, such as a parabolic mic. We utilize those. We've got a couple of them, and we've had some pretty good success with them. Using the parabolic mic helps you be able to capture the auditory sounds. These devices also help extend the range of the human hearing. Sounds that had formerly been recorded in the audio evidence and treated like EVPs may now, in fact, be captured AVPs. But it's still up for debate.
Yeah.
Even amongst us, you can't always be sure of what you captured.
No.
And that's why you have several team members listening to it, and reanalyzing what you've captured.
Right.
The other one, everybody knows this. You've seen it on TV.
All the ghost hunters, the ghost adventures, all of these shows, all they talk about is the EVP.
Yeah, and that's the big one that they present. And any person, you don't even have to be associated with a ghost hunting group. Mm-hmm. You can capture EVPs. I personally, when we travel, when I go on personal vacations, I'll take a recorder with me, and if I remember, if I'm not too wrapped up in the vacation itself, I'll try to do maybe not an EVP session, but at least start the recorder just to see if I can capture anything. When you're staying in hotel rooms or staying wherever you're at,
Stuff happens.
You could come across all kinds of things.
Yeah, this is funny. One of the teammates and I, we're really good friends. We've been friends for a really long time, and she's actually how I got introduced to our team founder. We went on vacation out where were we? I think we were in the mountains of northern Georgia one time, and I swear our like little cabin that we stayed at was messed up. Like, there was all kinds of stuff going on, and I don't like to do capturing EVPs wherever I am living personally, or if I'm just staying on a vacation. But at some point we had to start like doing a little mini investigation, because all kinds of weird noises were happening. We're having a lot of AVPs happening when we were at this cabin that we were staying at for a few days. And yeah, so I mean, it totally can happen anytime when you're not expecting it. Right.
And it doesn't take a lot of experience. I mean,
Joe Blow off the street can do it. I mean, it's really easy.
You just get you a digital recorder or an analog recorder. Yeah. The EVP is a term that's traditionally used to describe anomalous, intelligible speech recorded in or produced by electronic devices, and for which no currently understood physical explanations can account. This audio evidence is not heard at the time of their occurrence, but rather is captured on recorded media. And just as voice is a misnomer, so too is electronic, because the phenomena has long existed in analog recordings well before we had our digital recorders, before we had the electronic audio devices, before those became popular. Most paranormal investigators, myself included, we do have one member that still uses some analog.
Right. The team that he used to be on actually was completely, all of their investigating and audio evidence was captured on analog recording. Our team, for the most part, is 90% digital.
Yeah. And that's just due to the ease of reproduction, to be able to share it, to archive it, to instantly review it. And it's basically easier to work with.
Yeah, it's certainly easier, I think, to edit and go through. Like, if you hear something that you think is a piece of evidence, to pull it out is a whole lot easier if you need to amplify it digitally than if you had to do it using analog.
Right. The flashcards makes it a lot easier because you can take it and just stick it right into your computer and it's instantly uploaded. Analog, you have to sit there and let it run all the way through. And you're kind of limited on, 30 minutes at a time on one side of the tape or
Right.
one side, or the other. A digital recorder, you can have a month's worth of investigations
And you
on
can
it.
stick it, like, if you are going on an investigation, and every team member has their own personal digital recorder with them, you can have other digital recorders that you, like, stick in certain areas
Right,
of
stationary.
the building or the residence that you're not going to be investigating, and just leave them stationary and run 12 hours or however long your investigation is.
Right.
So yeah,
That's how we've captured, well, one piece of evidence that we're going to present here
Yep.
tonight. We caught it on a stationary device.
Yep. Okay, so up next, we're going to talk about the characteristics of EVP. So EVP have a distinctive character in terms of their cadence, pitch, frequency, volume, and use of background sound. The voices have a very distinctive sound to them. It's kind of hard to describe. Some EVP messages have an unusual speed of enunciations. The words might seem to be spoken more quickly than normal human speech. And you might also notice with the paranormal voices that they have kind of a hollow or monotone quality to them.
This is, yeah, kind of like there's no reverberation, there's no echo, and that's how you can tell, or at least that's
Yeah.
how I determined that it wasn't you, it wasn't me, it wasn't one of our other team members saying something in that hallway or in that room.
Right.
It is something extra.
Yeah, some of them almost sound mechanical in nature. Some of them sound like I don't know, they could have been human, but it's just like devoid of the natural resonance of a human voice. It's like that got sucked away somehow.
Right. You don't hear that breath to it. You don't have that, almost like a wet sound, or you don't hear that pop.
Right.
You don't hear that lip smack. You don't hear that breathe in, breathe out sound while somebody's talking.
Yeah. Which makes sense, because if a dead person
Right.
is creating a sound or human voice, they don't have a body.
It's strictly energy.
Right. So it has to come energetically instead of having the acoustic properties that your body naturally provides for a voice. That's kind of weird. EVPs also are received at either higher or lower time base than normal speech. So while the enunciation of the words can be faster, it's not just that. The frequency range of the phrases is sometimes higher than normal human speech. And I think on some of the clips that we're going to play today, we'll get to hear that.
One in particular.
Yeah.
It's a higher frequency, a higher vibration. And you hear paranormal experts talking about it. You hear spiritual experts talk about how it's a higher vibration or a higher frequency, and it holds true. It rings true.
Yeah. This Italian researcher Paolo Presi, he discussed missing the idea of missing frequency in the EVP. So he reported that spectral analysis of EVP samples has shown that the fundamental frequencies of voice associated with the human voice box are sometimes missing in the EVP, which is kind of what we were talking about before, but his idea is a little bit different. He's describing that the typical EVP is produced from a thickening of the background noise to form the voice, instead of it being just a hollow sound without the resonance. So that's another characteristic. Another one is the idea of precursor sounds, and we experience this quite frequently. Sounds are often heard prior to an occurrence of an EVP, and they sometimes vary, but they're really short, and they happen like within tenths of a second of when the EVP is captured, and it's usually like kind of a popping or a clicking sound.
Click, yeah.
And I think some of the ones that we'll play today are going to have that precursor noises in them.
One of them, and I don't think there's any rules that they have to follow, that the spirit has to follow to have a click or a sound before or a click sound after. It just seems that is more commonly captured with an EVP. I think you can have this sound, this click, even afterwards.
Yeah, some either before or after, sometimes both. I wonder if it maybe has something to do with the way that it's producing the energy to communicate.
Right.
With us.
One of the other pieces of evidence, I think, that we're going to show, I think maybe now that we're talking about this, thinking about it, I think that sound that we hear, was it preparing to try to communicate?
Yeah, I think so too. I know which one you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
I never thought about that until just right now.
Yeah. Those are basically the characteristics of EVP voices, or the voices that you hear in the recordings. The next thing I'm going to talk about are the classifications of EVP, and this is kind of long and involved, so just bear with. So EVPs are kind of strange in that they're not classified by the sound quality, but rather in the terms of believability of the source being of paranormal origin. So our team, we treat all EVPs as if they're perfectly explainable, and we use the classification system to categorize evidence that is less easily explained. Yeah. So if you've watched these shows like Ghost Hunters and Zach Bagans, Ghost Adventures, right? They will often be like, yeah, dude, we just got a Class A EVP. So we'll start with the Class A EVP. So that one can be heard clearly without using headphones, and listeners can generally form a consensus about what is being said. Even if we can't agree on exactly what is being said, you can clearly hear it without headphones, and you know that something's happening. There's some form of communication and speech. The voice is clear without needing to focus on a specific frequency when listening. So you don't have to run it through any editing software. You can listen to it, no headphones, and you know, boom, something is going on there. And these type of EVP are generally the rarest and most difficult to obtain. And for our team, we have far fewer Class A EVP than the other types. So, Crypt Keeper, was there anything that you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah. Like I said in the beginning, this is the part that this is what I really enjoyed listening for.
Well, these are like the holy grail. They're really exciting when you get them.
And that's, again, I was watching Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and all those other shows before I got involved with the group, before I got involved with Second Life Paranormal. And it, that was the meat of those shows, and that's what they always bring out, the evidence to show to the property owners. Yep. And I thought, man, that would be so cool. And I think that's why that evidence review is why I enjoy doing it so much, because you capture one of these Class A's. If there's anybody around, you're like, you rip the earphones out of your ear, you go run and say, listen to this, and you shove your earphones into somebody else's ears. All they're thinking is, God, I hope he cleaned his ears this morning when he took his shower. So, but there's not a single one of us that hasn't done that.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
listen
exactly.
to this.
Yeah.
You know, and you're shaking like, please hear exactly what I just heard.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was Class A. So the next step on the totem pole here is the Class B EVP. And the Class B is audible, but it's difficult to hear without using headphones. So you usually need to use headphones to hear your Class B. Frequently, there will be some kind of disagreement over what the message is, or disagreement over the assumption that there is even a message involved. But it's clear that there is a voice and something is being communicated, and it might take a few listens or some sort of amplification or enhancement using audio software such as Audacity or WavePad or whatever audio software that you use. But the Class B are really like the most common audio evidence during EVP sessions. And I think out of all of the EVPs that we have captured and that we have put up on our SoundCloud account, which we will link to at the end of the show, I would say probably the majority of the EVPs that our team has captured have been Class B.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And the next lowest classification is Class C EVP. And these will scarcely be heard without that. You really need to use headphones to hear these. And usually some sort of filtering, such as equalization or changing the frequency in your software. The wording will likely be indiscernible, and usually
garbled even.
It's garbled, and it's usually pretty speculative in terms of what it's saying.
Class C, I think more if I can hear, if I get a Class C, I may not even present it to the group because
seems strong enough.
Right.
Yeah.
You hold on to it as evidence, but
you're like, that's the lowest on your list.
Right.
It's like the last thing that you want to share to the group because you know that it's not as good as it could be, or if it's even anything. Because the other thing about the Class C, it could be the result of environmental sounds. It could be the result of sound matrixing, or if you have run it through some sort of equalization, that can jack up your whole sound file there, and it may render the whole thing useless. That's the only thing when you start toying around with that software and editing the EVP, is that you can actually get it to a point where you destroy it.
Right.
So that's why the Class A is so great, because you don't need to use any sort of software. And the Class Bs, for the most part, you really only maybe have to increase the volume.
Right. You get just to draw that.
To draw it out
a little bit.
Right. But the Class C, like, I really think the minute you start screwing around with the software is where it becomes not a great piece of evidence. So,
and I also think that this is where we can get into trouble with the people that are total skeptics of this.
Right. I mean, you don't have a lot of credibility when you do that. Yeah.
Right. If you're presenting Class C EVPs, make doubly sure that you explain, we had to do this, and we had to do this to this sound to get it to this point. But we felt that we needed to present it to you for this reason, and have really good, really valid reasons to present something that is that shady. That shady, exactly.
Yeah. And I think we actually haven't, I don't think we've ever had a circumstance where we have presented a Class C EVP to a client before. And I think in the circumstance that we would have one that we would need to present to a client would only be under the circumstance that it is backing up maybe one of the claims that they have. But it wasn't something that we experienced, but we caught maybe something that falls along that line. And that would be like the very last thing that we would share with them, because it's so,
So sketchy.
It is, for lack of a better word, it's sketchy,
So sketchy.
as hell.
With some of the groups that are out there, the skeptics don't need any help. So,
Right, yeah. And speaking of controversial EVP action, so the very last class, if we even want to call this a class, would be the Class R. And it's controversial because these EVPs are recognized by reversing the audio clip, and they make the transcription of the EVP unreliable because there's such a strong potential to matrix the words. That's not saying that you can't have a great Class R EVP. We have not captured one personally, either CK or I. So so those are your basic classifications: Class A, B, C, and R with a big question mark after it.
REVP.
R.
I think there are some others. You can look around on the internet and see that people have D classifications. There are several other classifications,
right?
And it's personal. I mean, however you want to call them. You know.
For our purposes, though, we just use this up through C.
Yeah, we keep it simple.
Yeah. And further classifications, this is if you want to get a little more detailed here. There is a Class 1 EVP, that tells us it's an interactive voice. So the spirit voice acts in direct response to a human statement, question, activity, action, something like that. Or the spirit voices will respond to each other in this class. Most or all of the words are clear and intelligible with or without your headphones. And the spirit voice communicates comprehensible and meaningful expressions of thoughts, emotions, intentions, actions, that kind of business. Now, the Class 2, where Class 1 was interactive, Class 2 is non-interactive. And the voice is a general statement or not a direct response to anything that we're doing at the time that we capture this EVP. Like the other one, most or all of the words are generally clear and understandable with or without your headphones. And as before, it communicates meaningful expressions, thoughts, actions, blah, blah, blah. Now, the last one, the Class 3, is a non-speech EVP, and we get a lot of these. And the spirit voice is a sound other than spoken word, and it can include things like growls, screams, humming, singing. You might also get some musical instruments, what sounds like a TV or radio, footsteps. We get that all the time.
Yeah, we get
knocking
footsteps
sounds. We get
knocking.
A lot, and banging sounds. So those are in terms of interaction, Class 1, 2, and 3. Now, there are these EVP specialists who I believe they were featured on Ghost Adventures, that show. And there's recently been some tragic events with them that you can research on your own on Google. And it's very sad. But they're self-credentialed parapsychologists and EVP specialists. And they have also attempted to divide these classifications into even further categories, not by numbers or anything like that. It's just by the type of EVP.
Making it a little more easy to identify.
And especially for people who are amateurs who are just maybe have some, activity at their home and are trying to catalog what is going on, so when a team comes in that they can help them out. So not all of these categories are universally recognized by the paranormal community, but they exemplify how even casual enthusiasts can classify and organize their materials. So the first one is the growling voice EVP, which is pretty self-explanatory. We've captured a few of those. the fast talker EVP, and that's said to operate at a higher sound frequency and therefore communicated very quickly. You can kind of pick out the words, but only bits and pieces. You can't, if you hear a phrase, you can't really string together the entire phrase. A sing-song EVP, which comes through
That was
as
actually pretty good.
as though a spirit were singing it. And a whisper EVP, which I think out of this group is the most common variety, is thought to be quieter because it's using smaller amounts of energy, to communicate with us. And I think, I don't know, out of all of our vocal EVPs that we have a lot of the whispered ones.
Yeah, and that's where you don't have to invest a lot of money into equipment.
No.
But if you're going to invest money, put them into your headphones or into your earpieces, because the better they are, the better that sound is going to be.
Exactly.
And you're going to you might pick up things with a relatively decent set of headphones or earbuds that you may not pick up on, your local box store.
It's really all in the headphones.
Yeah. You don't want to go cheap on your headphones.
Yeah.
Simple said.
Yeah.
The whispers they're our bread and butter.
Yeah. If we were actually making any sort of money off of
These
it. Disclaimer. Our group does not take any money for investigations. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're more the butter.
They are the butter. There's no bread. Yeah. So the next one, so the other ones that we've talked about, we have captured all of those. This next one, we have never captured this. It's called an altered EVP. It's very strange. Thought by some to be voice manipulation. It takes a person's spoken words and changes or rearranges them into a spoken message. We have not encountered this at any point in time. But if we did, it would be cool.
That would be, yeah.
But we have not had a piece of evidence that has had this going on.
If we capture that, we'll bring it to the show.
Exactly, because it would be exciting for us too. We have had the next one happen though, a mimic EVP, and this is where the spirit says one or more of the same words immediately after someone in the room has spoken them. And the thing that's really cool about this one is that sometimes the vocal quality of the spirit or whatever it is that's communicating with you will take on the vocal characteristics of whomever is speaking. So then it sounds exactly like you just said the same thing twice or three times or however many times the spirit comes up on the recording. So that's always one that makes you a little bit uncomfortable when you hear someone talking in your voice.
Yeah, that happened on our last investigation.
Yes.
I got accused of saying a couple things several times, repeating myself. And
it was
not me. I don't even have the radio.
Yeah, there was a vocal mimic running around the building that night, and it was doing it to several team members, not just the crypt keeper over here, but it was happening with a lot of people. So it was, that was very interesting. And the next one we've also encountered, which is the multiple spirit EVP. And this is where one spirit begins the EVP and another one or more of them complete the thought or sentence, and usually in different voices. So we've got some of those. And the layered EVP, which we have a few of also, is one EVP is spoken on top of another one. So you'll have multiple spirits speaking at the same time, almost like you're kind of on like a party line telephone.
Right.
And then the other way you can look at this layered EVP is that an EVP is found underneath the voice of a real person speaking. But we don't like to include that as a piece of evidence because they could be remnants of the recording process and not necessarily paranormal in nature. So out of all of those types of the Constantino's classifications of EVPs, we have captured all of those except for that weird altered EVP. And I kind of wonder if maybe that's something that would happen in a potential like demonic situation. I don't know.
Something
we haven't
more malevolent.
we haven't run into that yet. So not to say that we haven't run up against our share of negative things doing this, but yeah, so that is all of the classifications of our EVPs.
Okay, now that we've talked about the different classifications of EVPs, let's talk about the way that we capture them and the equipment that we use. First and foremost, the go-to tool for an investigator is the digital recorder or an audio recorder.
Hands down.
The most fundamental device for capturing EVPs. It's relatively inexpensive and it's reliable. It's ultra reliable if you keep fresh batteries in your pocket. Our team prefers Olympus recorders just because they work so well and the recording quality is just amazing. We get really good recording with the Olympus recorders. And I think just about every team member has at least one Olympus recorder.
Yes, if not more. Some of us have a couple of them.
Yeah. I carry 3 recorders with me. I do have one Olympus. And I generally keep that one with me so that when we are conducting EVP sessions. My other ones I'll leave as stationary, but I have 3 of them. Yeah. Again, I like to review a lot of evidence because more opportunities to capture something. There are new recorders out there though now that with the advanced technology, they allow for real-time playback, and these are helpful during investigations, like significant.
Yeah, because you can like go back and play whatever you just heard immediately rather than having to like stop, rewind, try to find exactly where it is on the digital, which sometimes in the dark is very challenging. So those real-time recorders are kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely on my wish list. Yeah. It's on my Amazon wish list. It's on my Christmas wish list.
If anyone is looking to get the Crypt Keeper a Christmas present this year, I think that might be it.
A un-Christmas present would be fine too. Again, though, the standard digital recorder will capture evidence, if there's something to be captured. Utilizing an external microphone, I know that Pandorica utilizes one.
Yeah, I have. They're really small and they just plug into the end of your digital recorder. And mine is also by Olympus. I need to put out a disclaimer here that we are not getting any kickback from Olympus.
Right. It's just
we're not being paid to promote their products. However, their digital recorders and the external microphones are really good. So that's the deal with Olympus. They're awesome.
Yeah. One of the other pieces of equipment that we use is a parabolic mic. If you think of a parabolic mic and you remember like espionage movies or spy movies, that's where this originated, was to capture sounds from far away, from many meters away, and amplify them. Most of the time you would see the guy sitting in a car with his parabolic mic sticking out of the windshield, out the window of the car with his headphones on, listening to some kind of nefarious conversation going on in the house across the street.
And those are the parabolic mic is the one that has the round, like satellite looking clear dish behind it.
It looks like a satellite dish. Yeah. And it's a parabolic reflector, and it's used to collect and focus sound waves onto the receiver, which is a microphone. And you can plug your you can plug your recorder into this with just a cable and record everything that you hear through the headphones.
Yeah. And they're really cool because you can hear stuff that literally is like half a football field away. Like they're depending on the distance of the parabolic microphone that you have, but we have a couple of them in our gear, and it's kind of amazing. Like, you can hear if there are people in other room, if you're at a residence or something like that, and there are people in other rooms, you can hear entire conversations.
Yeah.
It's a little creepy, but it's also kind of amazing how much sound you can collect with that.
Right. Very soft sounds are amplified dramatically. So that's the parabolic mic. The other, one of the other capturing devices, and it's not really a capturing device, it's more of a communication device for the spirit, is called a spirit box or Frank's box. And it's a device created by Frank Sumption that uses white noise, fast sequencing radio frequencies to help aid in spirit communication. The scanned frequencies generate snippets of sound, and the theory is that spirits can manipulate these frequencies and carry on conversations with the living. I know that we have interacted with numerous intelligent we've had numerous interactions
it's
utilizing a spirit box.
It's an interesting piece of equipment. It's sometimes when you're reviewing the audio evidence, it's not great during the review process because it creates all of these radio frequencies that you hear in the background,
right,
which the spirit or whoever is trying to communicate with you is using that energy to produce their sound. That is the theory behind the spirit box. But with that, listening to the background noise, you get sometimes an amazing amount of responses, and sometimes can carry on a full conversation.
Yes, and we've had that.
So
we've had that several times. And sometimes it's nothing other than just grabbing the sounds. It depends on what spirit wants to do that night. I mean, if they're willing to interact or are capable of interacting, this is turning out to be a pretty good device, pretty fun device sometimes.
Yeah, it is fun to use. Yeah.
One of the other devices now, it's relatively new on the scene, is the Ovulus. This is one of the many paranormal experimental devices created by Bill Chappelle, who is a retired electronics engineer. And this device works by measuring changes in the environmental energy fields around it. It modulates the energy, changes into audible speech using a synthesizer chip, and there's an extensive English word dictionary and a function that phonetically sounds out the words. I know that while we were sitting here preparing for tonight's show, that we were talking about the Ovulus.
Yeah, the Ovulus is its own handheld device, sort of like a K2 meter, which measures the EMF. However, they do now have an iPhone app called iOvulus, which I don't know if you could hear that. I just turned mine on.
Age. Rack. Closet.
And basically, it pulls from this database of words to communicate with us. So some of the words...
Double.
There it goes.
Living. Act.
Okay, so that just gives you a quick sense of what that does. Now, we don't promote using an iPhone or any sort of cellular device during your investigation. However, especially during your initial sweep, you do not want to use a cell phone. However, once you've done your sweep and you are like in the thick of doing your investigation and you're working on your audio, if you are having a lot of audio experiences that you can hear with your ears, maybe you're catching stuff on your recorder, at that point, if you want to pull out one of these extra devices like the Spirit Box or the Ovulus, you may get a lot of extra communication that you don't catch on just your digital recorder. So I think, these devices can be somewhat problematic in terms of the evidence review, but they're also kind of exciting because you sometimes, depending on your location, get a lot of
interaction,
feedback.
Yeah. Both the Spirit Box and the Ovulus, so they've got their flaws. and they're not to be the first method for capturing EVPs. But like you said, if you're in an investigation with a lot of activity, it's definitely worth bringing them out and seeing what you can get.
I think so too.
Okay, now we'd like to present some evidence that we have. We're going to bring 4 pieces of evidence to you. And the first one, we're just going to let it play. We'll loop it a couple times and let you have a listen to it.
Oh my God! Oh my God, what was that? Oh my God! Oh my God, what was that?
Okay, well, that was something. I'll tell you. Obviously, the energy burst, because I don't know what else to call it, at the beginning of that, scared the hell out of us. You could hear my partner who was investigating with me at the time. She was taken by surprise, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, so the first part of it, you hear this kind of like build up, and it has like a metallic quality of sound that doesn't sound human at all. And then as that force is building up, then you hear our investigator, like totally let out this crazy scream.
Yeah, it just...
Because she was scared shitless, basically.
even today, that was 7 or 8 years ago, probably. Mm-hmm. When I listen to it, it's still... It's
weird, yeah.
Yeah. We had been investigating this floor that we were on for quite some time, and we were ready to take a break. Actually, we were getting ready to stop investigating on the floor, and we'd stopped and was just sitting there, just listening to what was going on around us, listening for any kind of noise, and that happened.
Yeah. And this was at the same location, if you recall the very beginning of the episode when I was talking about my favorite quote unquote paranormal experience that happened. This is at that same location. It's like one of the most haunted sites in America. And yeah, that was one of our pieces of evidence from that. And I think that would classify as an AVP rather than an EVP, because you guys heard it.
You could hear it in real time.
Yeah.
Right. Her scream was loud enough that you guys heard her in another part of the building on a different floor.
We were 2 floors up from you guys, and at the complete other end of the building, in fact, I believe. And this building is very large.
Cavernous.
I mean, if you're at one end of the building and you've got a couple floors separating you, you typically cannot hear what's going on the other floor.
Right.
But we heard that loud and clear, and we were concerned that somebody was hurt. So we used our walkie-talkies and like contacted them, and we all came together and found that piece of evidence. And
right. It wasn't like it was in another room or down the hall. It was right next to us. I mean, it is clear as the sound is as clear as her scream that we captured. That is, for me, probably one of the most spectacular pieces of evidence I've captured.
Yeah, I think it's a really good piece, and it's still to this day. When you play it for people, they are like, "Whoa, it doesn't sound like a person." You know?
There's
it has a strange metallic quality to it. The next piece of evidence that we'd like to present to you tonight has also been collected from the same location. And what we'll do is we'll just play it for you first, and then we'll kind of give you the overview, like a little bit of the background of what was happening at the time that we captured this audio.
I think you should. Yeah.
Okay, so we looped that second piece of evidence for you a few times there. And basically, you hear us talking, and underneath, you hear some other things happening there. And at the time that this was captured, our team members, it was myself, our team founder, and one of our other investigators. And we were in the process of setting up a laser grid down a hallway. And this particular piece of evidence, we didn't hear at the time we captured it, so that would classify as an EVP. We were able to hear it in our evidence review without headphones. So that would label it as a Class A EVP. And because it's interacting, and we'll discuss like what we think it's saying and all of that in just a second, but because it's interacting with what we are doing and what all of our investigators heard in the review process, we all picked up on a couple of the same ideas. So we believe that it's a Class A, but also a Class 1 interactive EVP. And now we can talk a little bit about what is going on in this particular EVP. So you hear, some people only hear one level of it.
Right.
I personally heard 2 levels of it. And a lot of the other investigators disagree with me on this, and that's fine, because a lot of times you'll get some evidence that is confusing, and a couple people will hear it one way, other people will hear it a different way, and that's all fine. Okay, so Crypt Keeper, why don't you tell me about when you first heard this piece of evidence? What did you hear? Like, what did you hear as the EVP?
When I heard this, my son actually brought it to me because he had captured it. And when he came running up to me. He's like, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this. So I put the earbuds in and could hear you guys talking, and then that voice. And to me, initially, because it was a fast talker and because it was, a little lower, and there's always that ambient background noise that we've talked about.
Right.
It sounded like maybe turn on the light, turn off the light, something about, it sounded like light. But as we listened to it over and over, and sometimes you listen to these things
many times,
20 times,
maybe
more than that, it sounded like the voice said, turn on the laser. To me, that's exactly what it sounds like it's saying, which makes it interactive because you guys were setting the laser grid up.
I think you should. Yeah.
Can you explain in that clip what part of the frequency that you're listening to that says turn off the laser? Is it the breathy part, or there's also a high pitch?
It's the high pitch, fast sounding audio.
Okay.
It's like, turn on the laser, turn on the laser. To me, that's what it sounds like. Obviously, it's a higher pitch.
Yeah.
But higher vibration, higher frequency.
Because it also sounds that there is something mumbling or something underneath that is another voice. To me, I hear this other murmuring kind of sound underneath. But the high-pitched thing that pretty much the rest of the team had a general consensus that was turn off the laser, turn on the laser, turn on the light, one of those things. I hear it as go back. every time I play it, I never hear the thing about the light, and I always hear this go back to me. But I mean, I think either way, it seems to be, however you interpret it, as directly commenting on what we're doing at the time.
Yeah.
So we'll play this again for you so you can hear it and see which way you're leaning.
Maybe you'll hear. Maybe you'll hear.
And maybe
both.
you'll hear something completely different than we're hearing.
And if you do, contact us. And,
yeah. To us, it sounds like a layered EVP for sure. And it also, this is using the Constantino method. It also has the whisper quality and the fast talker quality. So we're going to play this for you one more time.
I think you should. Yeah.
Okay, we're ready to present our third piece of evidence, and we captured this at the same location as the previous two, and we'll let you take a look and we'll discuss it. All right, that was obviously a scream.
Clear as the day is long.
Yeah, we captured that on a stationary device.
Since we captured it that way, we can't know if it could possibly be an AVP. Like, there's the potential, if we were in the room when that was recorded, then maybe it could have been an AVP, but we weren't there, so we don't know. So for our purposes, we're classifying it as an EVP because we were not in the room and it was a stationary recorder.
It is a Class A type.
Yeah, I mean, no headphones necessary.
No headphones, no amplification, no...
You can hear that's a scream.
It didn't need any kind of anything done to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a non-speech for EVPs.
So that would be the Class 3 non-speech EVP. Yep. So, I mean, that one's pretty cut and dry.
Exactly.
The next piece of evidence that we're going to share with you, we captured at a private residence that we investigated. And what I will do is I will go ahead and play this clip for you, and we'll play it twice and then come back and discuss.
Maybe it's upstairs.
It's got to be upstairs.
Okay, let's take
Let's
that
see.
upstairs.
Look, you go all the way up.
Yeah.
And it's not upstairs.
All right, well, let's follow it up.
Here, so I can't see. I don't want to turn on my light either. Maybe it's upstairs.
It's got to be upstairs.
Okay, let's take
Let's
that
see.
upstairs.
Look, you go all the way up.
Yeah.
And it's not upstairs.
All right, well, let's follow it up.
Here, so I can't see. I don't want to turn on my light either.
At the beginning of this clip, you'll hear some of the investigators and myself talking that we see something and that we think it's moving upstairs, which probably sounds really odd. But when we captured this piece of evidence, we had our K2 meter out, and actually we were waving it around trying to figure out like where the center of the energy was that was causing the K2 meter to go up and down repeatedly very quickly. And it ended up being basically like almost we were on a staircase when this happened, by the way. And it ended up being about a 6 foot tall like energy field or whatever.
The field was about 6 feet tall.
And it was in basically the shape of a person. And the thing that was really interesting about this is that the 6 feet energy field, if you want to call it that, did not start on the floor. It started about a good foot off of the floor.
Yeah.
It was like hovering off the floor. It wasn't on the staircase, but it was like above the floor near the staircase,
Above the
like off
staircase.
to the side and above the staircase. So that's highly bizarro. I've not been on another investigation where we've had a humanoid form that caused the K2 meter to go off in its whole energy field before. So
Right.
that was interesting. And right before that had happened, I was holding a pair of dowsing rods in that same location, and one of our other teammates had a video camera going, and the dowsing rod started spinning so quickly, like airplane propellers. They were going so fast, and on the video, when we watched the video back, you almost couldn't even see them because they were circling so fast, and it just was like creating a little like sparks almost
Just a flash
of the light. Yeah, so like all of this stuff was happening right around the time that we caught this EVP. Now, you hear us talking and we're like, okay, we got to go upstairs. And then what we did was amplify the recording. We didn't have to change the frequency on this one at all. Like, I think the one that we played earlier with the childlike voice that said either like turn the laser on or go back, however you heard that. That one, we changed the amplification and also made the frequency lower. This one, we just amplified the section, and you'll hear, because our voices also get louder
Right.
in that section. But what is underneath our voices, we're hearing what I believe and what I think pretty much all of us came together to say, I'll show the way. We heard, and it sounds like a male voice underneath saying, I'll show the way.
And that would go right along with this being interactive, because we were headed upstairs
Right.
as a group, and it was willing to take us along or show us the
Yeah.
way to get there.
And we didn't hear this at the time of the investigation, so it's classified as an EVP. We did need headphones. Obviously, if we had to amplify that section of material, we needed headphones to hear it. So that was a Class B EVP. But we were all able to hear it with the headphones, and we all heard the same words. So therefore, it's not a C. And I think we said before in the program, like, we usually throw out anything less than a B, and just in terms of our archiving and what we keep as evidence. So that's a Class B, and it's interactive, so that would be a Class 1 interactive EVP, and it also has the whisper quality to it. So yeah, so those are our 4 pieces of evidence that we have, and hopefully you found them interesting and creepy and entertaining as we did.
They certainly were fun to capture, especially the first one.
You can also visit our SoundCloud account at soundcloud.com/second-light-paranormal. We will also have that in the description of the show, so you can click on it. We also have a YouTube channel, which is Second Light Paranormal, and we've got some of our EVP evidence up there, in addition to our awesome night vision experience podcast. So after the show, if you want to check out more of our audio evidence, you can go to SoundCloud or YouTube. And our next episode will be in May, and we will be discussing the ins and outs of paranormal investigation. And we'll have a special guest with us, our founder of Second Light Paranormal and investigator Alicia Kincaid. And she'll be coming on the show and kind of taking us through what happens during an investigation, what we deal with every time we've got to gear up and go out.
Well, that was a great time, wasn't it?
It was.
It really was.
I had a good time, and I hope everyone who is listening that you guys had a good time joining us. And I know a lot of it seemed to be a lot of factual information, but hopefully we made it entertaining, and you will now go out with your night vision goggles and go capturing some electronic voice phenomenon on your own.
So we want to thank you for listening to us geek out over our audio evidence today. And you can subscribe and listen to episodes of the Night Vision Experience on iTunes, Google Play, and the SoundCloud.
Thanks for listening, and have a good night. Thanks for listening to Night Vision Experience. Visit our team, Second Light Paranormal, at secondlightparanormal.com. Follow us on Twitter at SLParanormal, and like and follow us on Facebook. Until next time, don't be afraid of the dead.